past few weeks, I've been alluding to the fact that I was going to record an episode about how I lost my spark. And today is the day or the time when I lost my spark. So I want you, or I'd love for you, as you listen, to be thinking about where is this true in my life? Where have I, or am I, or will I feel this way? Who in my life feels this way? Because I'll tell you, the strongest people in your life, the ones who outwardly are doing really well, who maybe are super confident and successful and driven and connected and have like lots going on, a really full life, could be the one who's struggling, the one who is depressed, the one who's lost their spark. And so I'm going to go through my story today. We'll see what comes up. I was going to share a couple of times of when I lost my spark. I'd say this is the biggest time because anytime I've lost my spark since, I've been able to catch it. I've been able to know what it is. I'll explain a little bit why I didn't know and the reasons why I didn't want to acknowledge it. So let's go. Story time. Once upon a time. No. uh this is gonna be from when I was about 28, 29, that age range, okay? And I'm now 45. So for years, really was in like a constant cycle of checking boxes. And you know how it is. It's like I got the job I wanted, the home, life, like in all these different areas. And you see on paper, everything looked great. So I had a good job and I was engaged to be married and we were planning on buying a home and I was staying fit and I had friends and I had like a loving family. And I was ticking off all of the success boxes, but deep down I felt empty. I was like showing up every day. I was doing what was expected, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. And I had built I'd worked so hard to build this really successful life, a life that was, I thought, supposed to feel fulfilling. I was doing everything right. But instead of feeling accomplished, I felt drained. I felt disconnected. I was really kind of like depressed. And I thought this is just maybe what life was supposed to be like, oh, this is just how it is. And, maybe there's not as many daily exciting things, or I'm not traveling or whatever it was. But at the core of it, I felt unfulfilled, exhausted. I was hiding my true feelings just about how crummy I felt. And I was juggling everything. It's not that I necessarily was overworked or overwhelmed, but I was juggling everything, keeping up appearances. But inside, I felt like I was fading, like the I as a person, that I was fading. It was like my spark had disappeared. I didn't know how to explain it that way, but no matter what I achieved, I couldn't bring it back. And in my past, I did well in school. I was the president of the clubs, the captain of sports teams, had a lot of friends in the way of like, I knew a lot of people. I wasn't necessarily friends with everyone, but I knew a lot of people and I knew how to perform at a high level. I knew how to be driven, how to achieve, how to get things done. I was independent, self-reliable, all these great qualities, which I'm sure a lot of other successful women who feel this way too have been in that situation. But I couldn't bring it back no matter what I tried. I couldn't bring back that spark. And I was pouring all of my energy into things that truly didn't fulfill me. I didn't know at the time, right? And so what would I do? I would work harder. I would try to be everything to everyone. And I was numbing that emptiness, that void that I just couldn't fill. I was numbing it with distractions, things like wine, snacks. And I kept thinking like, okay, maybe if I just accomplish one more thing, maybe if I just got one more promotion, maybe now it's time to like get married, get the house, and then I'm gonna feel great. And that the happiness would come when. And the problem with would come when is that the goalposts just kept moving. And so then it was like I got there and then it would be like, okay, well now it's when I achieve that or when I get this or and I knew I couldn't figure it out alone. So um but actually like let's go back a moment here. Before I hired someone, I actually thought I could figure it out on my own. I was doing all the things and keeping up appearances, as I said, but it wasn't until my friend pulled me aside at work, put me into like a room at work, and said, Diane, you've lost your spark. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you've lost your spark. And I said to her, you can see that? And she said, yeah, like what's going on with you? And then I started bawling because I was like, the cat's out of the bag. I'm not hiding it as well as I thought. But I felt super ungrateful for the life that I had at that time, for all the things I had succeeded at. And I thought, how dare I? How dare I say that I'm not happy? How dare I say that I'm struggling with all that I had? And some of you might think, oh, first world problems or whatever. But when we have our basic needs met, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then we have more of that met, it none of it matters really if at the core we are feeling off. So from her pointing this out, realizing at that point that I couldn't do it all on my own, I decided to do something completely out of my comfort zone. I hired a coach. Now, when you think, well, if Diane, you did well in school, you probably looked to teachers for help. If you were president of clubs, you probably had some mentor or someone. If you were in sports teams, especially highly competitive sports teams, you have a coach and a high level coach, and then all the team people that support the team. Um, but the thing was, I wasn't good at being vulnerable because I was always in these leadership positions. And so it's true, it's lonely at the top because I didn't feel like I had people that I could open up to and confide in and speak my truth. Speak my truth about how I was really feeling. So it was super strange at first. And I was in my pragmatic analytical brain of like, okay, so we're going to do this and this and this and this. And I thought it was all about goal setting and such, but it wasn't. It wasn't. And I wasn't used to being vulnerable like that. I wasn't used to admitting that I needed help beyond like the help that everyone would need. But inside, something told me that this is what I needed. And that decision changed everything. You see, working with my coach, it gave me a perspective that I could not see for myself. It was like someone held up the mirror, right? Held up the mirror to my face and said, this is exactly what's holding you back. And here's how we're going to move forward. And that's what you need in these times when you've lost your spark, where you're like, where am I? Who am I? What do I like anymore? And that's the time when I was like, I started reconnecting with the person I used to be, that vibrant, passionate version of me that I thought I'd lost. Because I looked back and said, wow, who is that person that did that? Who is that person that just like said, oh, I'm going to go live and work in Japan and I'm going to go travel here. I'm going to jump out of a plane. Like, who is that wild, carefree, life loving person? And I get that every day is not travel and moving to another country and jumping out of a plane. But I didn't want to feel stuck anymore. And so coaching helped me to stop feeling stuck. And for the first time in a long time, because it seemed to go over probably a couple years, um, just it got progressively worse. I actually felt alive again. And even the many times that I've had this happen to me, a bunch of times throughout my career where I've had these moments of like, where did my spark go? I start to feel like it's Groundhog Day and so disconnected. And so from that, I've been able to create a life that feels aligned with who I really am, not just what looks good on paper. I've learned how to prioritize myself, set boundaries, and focus on what truly brings joy to my life. And if you're like, oh, I know those things. I know about setting boundaries, prioritizing myself, and focusing on what brings me joy, but you're not implementing it. See, that's the thing. I knew a lot of things, as do you, but if you're not implementing it, and there were a lot of things I didn't know. I didn't know about balancing your life, all 10 areas. I didn't know about measuring my life according to satisfaction. I didn't know about living more in alignment with my values, not my morals, my values, the things that energetically are powerful for me and have resonance. So now, because of those things, my relationships are deeper, my energy is brighter, and I finally feel like I'm living more authentically. And then if you're like, well, but Diana, if you realized all of this at that point, then how do you keep losing your spark? Well, what I see is there's a progression to who we are and what we do and how we develop. And my goal is just to be every day 1% better than the day before. And so when you keep moving up in your success levels, it's like new level, new devil. There are new challenges and new negatives and new feelings of pressure and responsibility and new titles you have to live up to and new roles where you have to be not only the superwoman, but the superhero where you do well in every area, plus you need to save everyone in every area that you're doing well. And so as I kind of move up, or let me finish that thought. As kind of you move up, there's new pressures and you develop differently. And then you fill your time with different things. And so there are times when I've needed to reset. Or there have been times like after both kids, I had postpartum depression. During COVID, my father died. My whole business model changed from live events to online. After building my online business, my Facebook account was deactivated. I lost all my Facebook ads, everything I was doing there, every picture I'd ever taken and posted on Facebook. Um, and my kids were at home during COVID, and I had long COVID. And one of the times I coughed for 8 months straight. And did I say my father died? So anyway, that's another time where I lost my spark. Another time is when I filled my calendar with more analytical things, things around strategy and figuring things out. And my coach called me out and said, Diane, you are in the work boots and you need to be back in the glittery shoes or sparkly shoes. And that so rings true for our lives. It's getting back into the joy and out of the dissonance, the things that are creating friction and like sucking your energy. So people have commented, at different points in my life. Yes, my friend commented, you've lost your spark, or something's off, or are you okay? And then later they'll comment, wow, you have this special glow, this new energy about you. You seem to be doing exceptionally well. Like these sort of comments will come. Some of those comments still came when I, had the mask on, and it was pretending everything was good. But when I've been able to flip it, there has been a glow. I'm probably in one of those glowy times right now. Yeah, I am because I feel alive. I feel confident. I feel light again, like I'm not carrying the weight of the world anymore. And in these times, I felt like I was just surviving, like I just got to get through the next day. And then I got to do it all over again. So I've gone from that surviving, you've heard this before, go from surviving to thriving. But I did it in a way that feels true to me. And I think that's most important. And so I see now that the spark actually was never fully gone. That's why I'm doing the Reignite program, because the spark is still in there. It's gone from kind of a blaze to this tiny little ember almost And it's just buried under things like expectations, responsibilities, distractions, titles, lack of space, overwhelm, right? And what I needed wasn't more achievement or more things or more tasks or more material items, but I needed more alignment with truly mattered to me every single time. And so what got me here to where I am today after each of these times and what got me out of each of these sparks was just deciding that I was totally done with feeling empty and burnt out, that I made the decision to invest in myself by hiring a coach and take the steps to reignite that spark and rediscover the joy I had lost and the joy in the new version of me, right? The joy of a 25-year-old Diane to a 45-year-old Diane is very different. Before it was things like jumping out of a plane, bungee jumping, canyon swings, water rafting, like these kind of like wild things. And now for me, it's different. It's African drumming, it's stand-up comedy, it's glass blowing, massages, time with friends, church, like totally different. So here's what worked, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Really recognizing that something needed to change, right? Awareness is the first step. And I had to admit to myself that the way I was living wasn't working. Then I needed to reclaim my identity, not from this identity of like that others have put on me, society's put on me, or that I've just sort of ended up in. And I started focusing on who I really was and allowing that to come out. So I am a little bit feisty. I am a little bit edgy, but often when I can get into these places, I'm playing the perfectionist. I'm playing the goody goody. I'm playing the person that doesn't make mistakes, and not because I'm hiding my mistakes, but because of the pressure of that. And so I get to not focus on these roles, but instead focus on me and not just checking the boxes. And so it's important that I really continue to make prioritizing myself so crucial. So I learned how to say no, to set boundaries, to make space for things that bring me joy and energy, not just space for things that I've been requested to do. And it's so important for me to connect deeply with others. Just yesterday, I had what was to be, an hour or two with one of my VA clients, and it ended up being like 4 hours, maybe 4 hours of us connecting deeply. But that means that I need to always remember, don't hide behind that polished facade, right? I had to start building authentic, supportive relationships by being vulnerable. And I had to let go of perfectionism. I had to stop trying to do it all and instead focus on what truly aligned with my values and my desires. Also, to stop measuring life according to success and instead focus on what brought me more satisfaction, which sometimes then doesn't bring accolades. So if you hear this and you're listening to this and you hear this being true for you, then let's talk, because I believe you can do this too. You can come out of that place with a lack where you've had a lack of spark. Um, Actually, I should share a little story with you around one of my clients who I'm going to call her Jane. Jane really felt like she had lost herself and she wanted to get her vibrant self back again. And she came to me super confused because, like me, like she had a great partner, she was raising her kids, she was building a business, and yet she felt like something is missing. And I don't know what it is. So similar situation to me. And she felt like something was off, like she'd lost herself in all the titles that she had, and she didn't feel like even anything lit her up anymore. Like, what makes me happy? I have no idea. So basically, it's like she was living in black and white, and she also seemed very flat, right? There was just this like heaviness, this flatness to her. She definitely had lost her spark, but thankfully, through some coaching, we were able to uncover her spark again. We were able to get her back to her best self, not just herself, but to her best self. in under 6 weeks. And this is why I created Reignite. By the way, doors closed last Friday, depending on when you're listening to this, doors are closed. However, if you send me an email, diane@dianerolston.com, I could open a spot for you, depending on just like where you're at. Tell me where you're at. That's how I started with my coach. I like poured my heart and soul into an email to her, and she was like, I'm taking you on for sure. So anyway, let's go back to Jane. She was so much happier after, and it made her marriage improve. She showed up as a more engaged parent. She was more confident, so her business did better. And the best part of all of that is when she said, Diane, I feel like I'm living in color again. And that's how it feels when you lose your spark, you're in black and white. And when it comes back, you're in color. So that spark is there, right? It's still waiting for you to uncover it. If you have a friend in this situation, send them this episode for sure, and they can reach out to me as well. And so the key thing is to shift from that feeling of unfulfilled, maybe burnt out, to a feeling of alive, aligned. That's how you're going to have more success in life. And you don't have to become someone new, right? You don't have to change everything about your life. You just really need to reconnect with who you are like already, and take the steps to bring your spark back. So I know it's possible. I did it with the help of a coach once, twice, three, four times over the years, right? It's a lot of years. And so 20 years that I have been like losing my spark and then getting it back. And I continue to increase my success along the way. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss out on future episodes. I do release them once a week. And make sure that you share this episode with a friend who you think, yeah, maybe she has lost her spark and she needs to hear your message. And if this resonates with you, reach out, Diane@DianeRolston.com. No matter when you hear this, I don't want you living in black and white anymore. Until next time, get your spark back and stay dynamic. Bye.